thank you very much, Brett, for kind of helping us out with this project. To get the thing started, could you just tell us who you are and what your particular job is?
Sure. My name's Brett Fanoff. I am the managing director of MSubs Limited in Plymouth, which is a company that builds submarines and other underwater equipment. And I also have a couple of other small companies that build software and artificial intelligence to help those machines do interesting things underwater.
Fantastic. And so what kind of activities are involved in your particular job?
Lots of things. So what's involved with my job? So I'm the chief executive of the company, and we have offices in the United States and here in England and in Toronto, and I sort of oversee all the activity in those things. But most specifically, I guess it's an interesting question. I don't like to say that I'm an admin person, but I am. I'm sort of in charge of what happens, and I set the strategy for the company, and I go out and meet people and talk about their needs and how we can help them achieve their goals, whatever it may be, whether it's with the military or with an underwater research firm, by designing and building new equipment for them. And then I oversee a team of about 75 engineers and fabricators and craftsmen that sort of execute the vision that either our clients have or I have for what it is I'd like the company to do.
Okay. And how did you get into the particular job that you're in at the moment? I mean, it sounds like you've got lots of things going on.
Well, that's a good question. How do you get into it? In my case, by accident. So I grew up in the United States, near the sea, near Plymouth, Massachusetts, actually near Boston. And now I live in Plymouth, UK, which is kind of funny. But I was always interested in science and engineering and the natural world. And so when I went to university, I started out studying physics. That was sort of what I really wanted to do. But I ended up leaving university very quickly because I just wasn't ready to be there at the time. And joined the military for a couple of years, got out of that. And when I went back to school, to university, I was more interested in other things that I felt like I missed in my education as a younger person. So I got into, I actually studied anthropology and classics and sort of traditional liberal education in languages and dead languages and Roman and ancient and Roman history in particular, and then cultural anthropology. And while I was doing that, I drove a bus to pay for my education because I wasn't given any financial aid. So I drove a bus full time at the university, which managed the public transit for the whole region I was in, and studied those things. But my interest in sciences and physics hadn't gone away. It was just sort of on hold for a while. And then after I graduated from university, I didn't know what to do with myself. And I actually drove trucks for a while, and up and down the East Coast. And then a professor that knew me well kind of got annoyed and said, "You can't do this for the rest of your life. You know what you should do? You grew up diving and near the water, and you're interested in sciences and physics, and you are an archaeologist essentially now. Why don't you go and study shipwreck archaeology in Texas at the Institute of Nautical Archaeology at Texas A&M?" And she wrote me a recommendation, and I went. I got accepted, and so I decided to start a master's degree there. And I spent a couple of years there, but I got more and more interested in technology as time went on. And at Texas A&M had a fantastic oceanography program and exploration, subsea exploration program. And I wanted to figure out how to bring those tools to bear into shipwreck archaeology. So I ended up taking more and more and more courses in oceanography, and then left university to work for a company owned by somebody I met through an institution that funded some of my archaeological research underwater. And I worked selling and developing sonar systems to image the seafloor. And after a few years of doing that, Texas A&M asked me to come back and study for an advanced degree in oceanography. Now, I didn't finish my master's, and I didn't finish my PhD either. I went back and I was in graduate school then the second time around for almost 7 years. And I met my wife there and helped her through her graduate career, and she got her doctorate. but to pay for all that, I started a small company to do research and to take in grants and government support and handle contracts without having too much overhead to give back to the university for facilities. And then it just sort of grew and grew. And at some point, the university said, well, you have to make a choice. You're either going to run that company or you're going to finish your doctorate. And at that time, I had, 20 employees. So it just kind of took off from there.
Wow, that is amazing. What a story. Okay, well, you've answered a couple of the other questions before I've even asked them, really. So how do you kind of keep yourself current? I mean, how do you kind of keep yourself up with the hunt, so to speak?
Well, that's increasingly difficult. And I don't know how current I am, but I think I'm pretty within my field, and my field is quite a remit, but mostly it's a lot of reading. I think today most people in business spend too much time reading email, and email is sort of the bane of the modern existence, right? There's too many ways to communicate, and every thought somebody has is not that important that it needs to be sent in some form of a message. But even I fall victim to that. So I try to have a little bit of discipline and focus on reading. So I read what used to be called trade magazines, right? So there's publications, digital and in print, that publish the latest scientific discoveries or latest engineering news or latest engineering techniques or material science around the ocean. And there's a dozen or so of those that come out every quarter. And so I read them, and I don't have to, you don't read them in depth. I mean, they tend to be short pieces, but it sort of tells you what's going on, the trajectory of the market. And then we do a lot of defense contracting, and I'm immersed in that. And I know over decades of work, I've met so many people that my network is quite broad. So we all talk and we chitter chatter and figure out where the next thing is going. And sometimes it's like crystal ball gazing. The most important thing is to trust yourself a little bit to make a decision and go off in a direction that you think is productive, and not to be afraid to find out a month or a year later that maybe it was a mistake. You can just change your mind and do something else. I mean, hopefully you don't lose your shirt while you're doing it, but generally that doesn't happen. And so I stay current by trying to say yes as much as I can to new things, to going to meetings with friends, to reading trade publications. And sometimes you just, something strikes your fancy, and I also read broadly in the sciences. So something might interest me. So I get interested in machine learning and artificial intelligence from a applied perspective. Like, how do I actually take what's out there in the world and in that realm and make it tangible and useful in the realm where I work? And so then you just start talking to the people that work with you. I have a luxury in that I'm surrounded by a group of people who are all smarter than me. And that's one way you stay, because they all have very diverse interests. And you talk to them, they become, they're employees, but they're also friends. And then you read a lot, and you read broadly, and you take some chances. You try different things, and you learn things, and you discover things. One of the things that I think that really troubles me in the world these days is, there's a funny little book by a British author that sort of laments the loss of bookstores and record stores. Because if you know what you're looking for, you can find it quite easily now. But if you don't know what you're interested in, or if you don't know what you're looking for, it's a different thing, right? It's very hard to browse the internet, right? So I'm sort of an age where we used to go to bookstores and you discover things and people and authors and perspectives by accident on the shelf because the cover looked good, or the little blurb on the inside page looked good, or somebody recommended it to you, and then you went to look for it, but it wasn't there in the book next to it on the shelf where it should have been. Looked, oh, that's interesting, and you read 10 pages and got hooked, and it pushed you down, or you looked at the wall of technical publications and magazines available. So I try to keep that spirit of discovery alive and talk to my friends and embark on different things. And it's like kicking over stones. You always find something new. And do a little less email and spend a little more time learning something new every day. Mike
Okay.
always said that that any day where you didn't learn something new was a wasted day.
Okay.
And so less direct messaging, less WhatsApp, less Instagram, less email, have a little time to think, read a little bit more.
Okay.
Sorry,
So,
that sounds trite.
yeah,
but
no, that sounds fantastic. That's just, I mean, that's amazingly insightful. I mean, the entrepreneurial spirit there is kind of bubbles through as you're kind of talking. It's just fantastic. That's just the kind of thing we're looking for, really.
Okay.
Okay. Just what would you say were the key challenges to your job, and what do you think are the key rewards to your job?
So I can tell you what the key rewards are easily. The key rewards are getting to work with a group of people that I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by, who are all extremely intelligent and diligent and funny and annoying and the same. And having that, being able to work with extremely competent, intelligent people is a huge luxury, and it's the greatest reward I get. I also get money, but I'd rather have the people.
Okay.
Because I don't know how, there was a time before you existed, there'll be a time after you exist. The time in between is extremely short. What you do in that time, regardless of its length, is what gives you purpose. And if you take that perspective, money doesn't seem as important, although it does facilitate you doing some silly things like starting a submarine company. So I can't decry it completely, but it's my biggest reward is getting to work with the people I work with and getting to see the things that I imagine become real.
Okay.
You know, that's very satisfying, right? Even when they don't quite work, it's like, that's okay, right? And it's a satisfaction. And probably the biggest challenges are the exact same ones as some of the rewards is the people. You know, when you own a company, you have your problems, and then you also have all the problems of everybody that works for and with you that you have to deal with. And you have to keep up a tremendous amount of focus over a very long period of time. And so while I always try to set aside time to read and to diversely read and to think, there never seem to be enough hours in the day for everything. And probably the thing I hate the most is email.
Okay. Well,
right.
Yeah, I have sympathy with that. I have sympathy with that.
Because it feels like work. I hate meetings and I hate emails because meetings have somehow become work. I mean, I deal with some companies that they'll have meetings for, 50, 60 people, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. And they all feel like they've worked very hard, but nothing's actually been accomplished.
Okay.
And so those are the biggest challenges, is getting rid of those things that seem like work, but actually prevent people from accomplishing things and having a sense of satisfaction at a job well done. That's my biggest challenge.
So, wow. So if you were kind of looking at a person to do the kind of role and work in the company that you're working in, what would you say are the qualities you're looking for in that kind of person?
Oh gosh, there's many. You need to be articulate, well-spoken, focused. You need to have patience. You need to like people. Now, many people can succeed greatly in business and far beyond my dreams or my capabilities and not be particularly nice about it. I don't know that I'm particularly nice, but you have to be willing to engage with people and have empathy and understand that, it's not about getting people to do exactly what you want them to do, exactly how you want them to do it. It's about understanding that all the differences and that comprise strengths and weaknesses in the people around you, and then assembling those teams of people in such a way that the outcome is as close to what you would like it to be, to connote success, and also give those people meaningful jobs, things that they enjoy doing as well. So that you need to be interested in people. You need to have a good technical grasp of things. So mathematics, the importance of a strong foundation in mathematics cannot be overrated. Mine is lousy, but improves with time. But it's important to stay flexible and to enjoy working with people and to be patient and focused. But I think maybe the most important thing, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, is the ability to make a decision. So people really struggle with this. People try to build consensus. Our society these days, we always talk about consensus. We talk about very collectivist ideas, which is fine, but you don't build skyscrapers and bridges with collective kind of thinking, right? With consensus building, because physics and engineering and math doesn't care what your consensus is.
Okay.
Right? It's either work or it isn't, and based on the science, and how you feel about it isn't relevant. And you need to be able to make very quick decisions as well. I think I probably make 100 or 1,000 decisions a day. It's hard to keep track. It can be anywhere from tiny little decisions about, you know, who I want on a team to who I would like to fire, who I want to hire, how much money to invest in a new venture, how to price something.
Okay.
Trust people, how to embark on something new, how to end something old, how to get the gutters fixed on the building. Is the price too high? Is it too low? How much time do you devote to all those things? And if you become, well, you need to be contemplative in some ways, and it's very important to have time to think. You also need to remember that not every decision requires consensus, and not every decision requires the same level of consensus. And also that at the end of the day, the result of most of your decisions on balance will probably be fine or neutral. And it's the big decisions that matter. And if you get bogged down with every little decision, then you will never make a big decision. And I think we're all too concerned. I'm not, but I don't really care how anybody thinks I am, or
Okay.
it's not really, I don't judge myself by someone's external opinion of what kind of person I am.
Okay.
I know myself. And so when I make a decision, if it's wrong, well, then I'll change it, because I'm not concerned with being embarrassed. I'm concerned with getting it right so that I can keep my job and do interesting things and take care of my family and help the people who work for me take care of theirs. How I feel about it, my embarrassment doesn't enter into it. I don't care if somebody I don't know thinks I made a bad decision and points, oh, haha, he made a bad decision and now he's had to change his mind. So what? Who cares?
Okay. Okay.
Process. And but not making a decision is the worst possible choice.
Okay. So I'm gonna try and draw this to an end now, because
Okay.
you give me so much work and so much kind of interesting insight here. The last question, really, if we can kind of keep it fairly short, is what is the one thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, that kind of gets you to go to work?
It's the people I work with and that work for me, and the shared obligation we have to each other, and the fact that what we do is interesting and necessary and fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.